Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Remote Real Estate Investor. I'm Michael Albom, and today I'm joined by Steve Rozenberg, who's an airline pilot and entrepreneur, and he's going to be talking to us about the mental mind shifts we as investors need to make in order to scale and have successful businesses. So let's get into it. Steve, what is going on, man? Thanks so much for taking the time to come hang out with me today. I appreciate it.
What's happening, fellas? Good to see you.
Oh, super good to see you, Steve. I am super excited to share with our listeners a little bit about you and your background because I know a little bit about it. But for anyone who doesn't know who Steve Rozenberg is, bring us up to speed, quick and dirty, who you are, where you come from, what is it you're doing in real estate today?
Sure. So I live in Houston, Texas, born and raised in Los Angeles, actually. My career brought me out here. And that career is what got me kind of involved in being a real estate and being an entrepreneur. I'm an airline pilot by trade, and I got hired at 25 years old. I was the second youngest person ever hired by this particular major airline.
Wow.
And hired at 25, I had the best job in the world. I was flying all over the globe. I was 25 years old, and it was the most safe, most secure job that anyone could imagine having. Until a certain day in history. That day was 9/11, and that day changed my life. It changed a lot of people's lives. It changed my life because on 9/13, 2 days after 9/11 and the towers fell, I got delivered a furlough notice. And I was basically told, hey, Steve, you know what? That safe, secure job that you thought you had, it was never safe, and it was really never secure, and you're about to be on the street with 50,000 other pilots. So to say that I got punched in the face very, very hard within about 48 hours would be an understatement.
Yeah.
And it was rough. You know, all I ever wanted to do as a kid is be an airline pilot. I didn't want to do anything else. I was fulfilling my dream. And something happened, which I realized it had nothing to do with me, but it affected me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't a part of 9/11, but I was a repercussion, a ripple effect, if you will. And so I started to talk about what I could do. What could I do to survive, to make a paycheck, right? All I knew was to be a pilot, but there was many, many other pilots out there, probably better pilots than me, to be honest with you, that, you know, were also on the street. And I looked and I saw that everyone that was tied to wealth somehow was tied to real estate. I didn't know anything about real estate, but I was like, okay, I mean, I knew some pilots who had rental properties, but I didn't know much about it. So this is 2001. So there was no YouTube or Facebook. So I had to go to the library. I had to get a library card.
A lot of our listeners are probably asking, like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a big house with a lot of books in them. And so I had to start learning about real estate. I read a book a week. And I read everything I could because I thought that I was behind the curve of figuring out what I was going to do if this airline thing, if there was another terrorist attack or something happened, I was going to be out of work. And so I learned all the different things. You know, now it's very cliche, you know, burrs and all this other stuff, but I learned how to buy, I learned how to flip, I learned how to wholesale properties. I got lied to, I got ripped off, I got cheated on. I mean, you name it. I just kept getting pushed down, face down in the mud every time. Yeah. But I kept getting back up because I had to. I didn't have a choice. I had to figure out this combination. And I saw people that were successful. So I was like, okay, there's a recipe. I just don't know it, but I can figure, like, I'm not the dumbest guy in the world, but I can figure this out. And then I started getting better and I started winning a little bit more than I was losing. And I started figuring out. And what I realized was communicators are actually the ones that are the most successful, not the contractors. It's four walls and a roof. It's relationship driven. It's not anything else. And that relationship is driven by business models and it's driven by systems. And so I started realizing that the four walls and a roof in the dirt really had nothing to do with being a real estate investor. The successful people were good communicators and they understood the value of leverage and team. And then I started looking back at my real estate and my airline career, and I started looking at how airlines run. And I was like, okay, systems, procedures, structure. And I kind of started melding the two. And that led me into starting to become successful as with my old business partner, Pete Newbig, who's been on your show. Yeah. He and I built a very, very successful property management company by understanding how to leverage those models and how to leverage systemization. And then I've gone on to do a lot of other things, coaching people, working with people, helping people understand the systemization of a business is very fundamental to be successful is what I've learned. And that's what I help people with.
I love that. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the systemization here in a minute. But for anyone listening, it's like, well, Steve, Michael, I'm not an extrovert. I'm more of an introvert. I'm more of an inside kind of person. Like, am I just doomed to never be a real estate investor? Like, what should I be doing if that's me?
So that's a good question, because a lot of people, a lot of people that go into real estate, what I've learned is they're running away from a life or job that they don't want. When you talk to real estate investors, and I coach a lot of real estate investors all over the world, and when I talk to them, I'll ask them, why are you doing this? And a lot of them will tell me, I don't want this. I don't want that. They're running away from something. And what they're running away from is a life that they don't want to have. Unfortunately, when you're running away from something you don't want, that's what you're focused on, and you run right back into it. I mean, that's the cycle, right? Because that's your filter. But what I've learned is you don't have to be the best communicator, but you have to have good communicators on your team. There's things that I am really, really good at, and there are things that I am horrible at. It's a matter of understanding what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses. I don't think that I should become this is just my opinion. I don't think it makes sense to work on my weaknesses. I don't know anything about accounting. I would make a company go bankrupt if I started doing the accounting books for my business. So why should I go and take 2-year courses at a junior college to learn how to do books, or I just hire someone? And that's what they do. So I've taken my weakness and I've actually turned it into a strength, because now I don't have to think about it. I don't have to focus on it. I have someone in place that is run by KPIs and metrics and accountability. And I just parceled that whole piece of my life off. So to answer your question, I don't think you have to be good at that. A business needs it. Like my business partner, Pete, he was the integrator and I was the visionary. I was the forward guy. I was the guy out in front, but I sucked at the operational side. He was like the mushroom in the back room. And my job was to break his business all the time. It's like, I wanted to have so much sales and marketing coming in that he would go, Steve, I can't take it anymore. And that was like my victory lap of showing him that I won.
I did. Yeah.
And that's the sales and marketing tug of war that goes on. Right. And so I don't think that you have to be good at everything, because the reality is you're not. You're probably good at one thing and you suck at everything else that you do. It's a matter of identifying, what am I good at? What am I not good at? Leveraging out those other things and focusing on that one thing to be the very best that you can be. And if you can do that, you will help the business, the organization, and you'll be much happier too, I think.
Yeah. I think that makes a ton of sense. So talk to us, Steve, about you got 3 to 5 properties, you're looking at scaling up, you're realizing maybe a little bit more and more, you're self-managing. Hey, this might be more of a job than I was anticipating. I'm trying to get out of a job. What are some systems people should be putting in place? And how should they be thinking about systemization if that's a new term for them? That's never something they've done before.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to back it up a little bit if it's okay, because a lot of people, if they have 3 to 5 properties, and I get a lot of people that will call me and ask me that question, like, hey, Steve, if I'm in front of them, they'll put a deal like 3 inches from my face. And they're like, hey, is this a good deal? Like, being closer makes it more sense. I don't know, but they'll put this right to my face and they're like, is this a good deal? Well, I don't know what a good deal is for you. So first question is what's the goal, right? What is the date of that goal? So if they don't know the goal and they don't have a date and a timeline and a way to achieve that goal, I can't tell them what to do. I can't give them directions. It's kind of like if you said, hey, Steve, we're all going to go to Disneyland and we have to be at the front gates at 8 a.m. on Friday morning. And we're going to leave our house at 6 a.m. and we're going to take the 405 to the 91, get off on Disney Drive, and we're going to go into the gates to be there ready to go. Well, if along that way you get lost, you're going to pull over and you're going to go, hey, Steve, can I get directions? What's the first thing I'm going to ask you?
Where are you trying?
Where are you going? Yeah. If you say, I don't know, I'm just driving around today, I'm going to go, well, then I can't help you because I don't know where you're trying to get to. Yeah. So if you take that same analogy, many people buy properties, they don't have a goal. So if they say, should I buy more properties? My question is I don't know, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Because, many people, they think that owning rentals is the goal. That's just the strategy to achieve the goal. That's like saying, I'm going to get on the 405 freeway. And you're going, where are you going? I don't know. I'm just going to get on the freeway and drive. And the reason I know that is when Pete and I first started buying properties, that's what we did. We were just buying properties and we were going the wrong way in the wrong direction at a very, very fast pace. And nobody stopped us to say, where are you guys going? Because we're just driving. We're like, we're making great time. Unfortunately, we're going in the wrong way. So to answer your question, so going back to what you're saying about systemization, every business normally has about 8 to 11 systems in their business. It's a matter of looking at what you do and systemizing everything. So if you took a system and put it in a vertical, let's just say when you're going to rent a property, what is the system that it takes to rent that property? You've got to basically, first thing you've got to do is maybe the first trigger of that system is when the make ready's done. Now the property is in rent ready condition. It now triggers this system to happen. What's the first thing you got to do? Well, maybe you've got to go and take pictures and video of the property. Step one. What's the next thing you got to do? Well, then you've got to do some comps and check out the area and see what the property's renting for. That's step two. So you're going through and you're just basically talking to me like I'm a 3-year-old or third grader, and you're explaining to me in very painstaking detail what you're doing. These are all steps in the process of a systemization. Once you create the system all the way through to getting the property rented, once the property's rented, that system is complete. Maybe that system is 19 steps, right? Then you look at that system and go, okay, is this the most efficient way to run this system? Is there any redundancy? Is there any things that we don't even do or should not do? Are we missing some things? Now, let's say, for example, this person, let's just say he grows and he gets an employee to do these tasks, right? Or he subs it out to a company. This company needs to know very, very clearly what they're doing, because the definition, like, look, I think we can all agree that when you own one business or you own 50 businesses, which are rental properties, those are businesses, that you've got to treat it like a business, right? The challenge is most people don't. They don't have any systems, they don't have any structure, and it's chaos, which is why so many landlords get sued, because there's no systemization or standardization, meaning how you lease a property. When you're in the airlines, right? We'll go back to being an airline pilot. If I'm an airline pilot and I came out and said, hey, everyone, this is going to be a great day today. We're off to Hawaii. This is my first time ever doing this, so wish me luck. I'm just going to wing it and hopefully we make it there. How would you feel?
Yeah, a little bit shaky.
Right. But yeah, you'd probably be like, I'm not getting on this plane.
Yeah.
But that's what many people do with their rental properties. And they're doing that with their financial lives, right? This is your real life. You're trusting me with your life, but you don't do that with your financial life. So there's a disconnect as to the training and the way that you can scale, because if you have to do everything in your business, you don't own a business, you own a job. And a job is not scalable because you have only so many hours in the day and you have so much knowledge of what you're good at and what you're bad at. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's a very hard thing to unpack.
No, it totally does. It totally does. Two things. First thing is, I think you must be having been out of LA for a long time, because your analogy, you're talking about getting on the 405 at Disneyland, you leave by 6, get there by 8. There's no world in which that happens today. Yeah, first and foremost.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But secondly, so like, how does someone make that mindset shift? Because I think so many of us, and specifically it seems to be pretty pervasive in the real estate world, this DIY mentality, I do it myself. How do you make that mental leap of, okay, I'm going from doing it myself, small business owner, to hiring someone or contracting it out or putting it to somebody else so I can get out of my own way?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things. Number one, you have to be willing to let go of your ego and pride, right? Because ego and pride are success inhibitors. They will kill your success quicker than anything. I should do it because I'm in charge, right? And so let's go back to the goal, right? If I said, hey, what's your goal? And you didn't have, and this is what I use this example when I coach people. I'll tell them, okay, let's just use this as an example. I call it a 20-20-20. 20 properties in 20 years, giving you $20,000 a month in passive income. It's a goal, right?
Yeah.
It's got a time limit on it. It's something that we can attach an actual goal to, and we know how we're going to achieve that goal because we have a scoreboard to see if we've made that. Yeah. So that means that each property needs to be giving off $1,000 a month in passive income to get 20 properties giving me $20,000 a month. Okay.
Yep.
That means, okay, so I'm gonna answer your question in a roundabout way. We've got to say, okay, if we want to have 20 properties, that means by year 10, we have to have acquired all those properties so that from year 10 to year 20, we're going to pay those properties off because we want them free and clear by year 20. Okay. That means between year 1 and year 10, we have to purchase 20 properties, which means we have to close on 2 properties a year, which is every 6 months, which means every 3 months, we have to be looking for deals. My first question is, do you have the finances to even make this happen? Do you have the financial means to achieve this goal? If they say, I don't have a job, I'm going to go, well, then we're done talking, because first thing you need is the financial means to make that happen. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Then we say, okay, when you achieve the goal of 20, right? And we get to where we want to go. What I have learned, and what many people, I'm sure some people will learn, and it's not a bad thing to learn, but a lot of people identify success by their accolades, meaning how much money they have in the bank, or how many properties they have, how many doors, whatever they want to use as their gauge. That's how they quantify their success or lack thereof. Now, Pete and I had a very successful property management company that we sold to a venture capital, much larger firm. And I can tell you that when you get that money in the bank, it is very, very, very anticlimactic. Literally, after we sold our company and we sold it for well into 7 figures, all of a sudden I thought, oh, I'm done. This is awesome. Now, mind you, I still am an airline pilot this whole time. So I'm okay financially, but I thought, man, if we sell this company, we're good. You know what happened Monday morning after we sold the company?
Did you put on your uniform and go fly a plane?
My wife said, hey, don't forget to take the trash out because the trash men are coming. I'm like, but I sold the company. I sold my business.
I did it.
Good. She's like, don't give a shit. Take the trash out. So my point is all of a sudden you think you're in some magic club. You think you break through this glass ceiling. And the reality is nobody cares. And the reason I'm going somewhere with this is that we think that once we achieve a mark or a goal, that's going to make our lives complete. And sadly, it doesn't. It actually makes it more hollow, because you realize wow, I've been doing this all these years and nobody even cares. Everyone's moving on. So what I always tell people when I told you earlier that a lot of entrepreneurs, they buy real estate and people want to get involved in real estate. And I ask them why. They say, I want more freedom, right? I'm sure you've probably heard this a lot. I want freedom. I want freedom to do what I want. Blah, blah, blah. They use this word freedom like it means something special to them. I tell them, okay, well, let me ask you this. Why don't you just sell all your shit today, go live in your car at the park, and you'll have all the freedom you need.
Yeah.
No one will bother you. You'll have your freedom. And they think about that. I'm like, but you know what you won't have? Is you won't have the memories that you want associated with that freedom. So we're really not buying freedom. What we're buying is memories. So when I sell a business or I have rental properties giving me cash flow, what am I doing with that cash flow? It's giving me the ability to have freedom to go buy the memories. It's the memories we want. So going back to your question, how does somebody step out of what they want? I would first ask them, what memories do you want to buy? Because at the end of the day, we're not leaving this earth with anything except our memories, right? Yeah. When our expiration date happens, we're not going anywhere except with memories in our brains. What memories do you want, right? And the real estate and the cash flow or whatever you're doing with that will give you the means to buy those memories. So buy the memories. Don't buy the time. Time is, you can go to prison and have all the free time you want. You may not like the results, but you'll have free time. Buy the memories, right? Go to, have dinner on the Mediterranean in Greece, right? Go to the African safari, the Rolling Stones in Wembley Stadium. Those are the memories that you want. And that's what real estate gives you. So going back to your question, when someone says, hey, how do I get out of it? I'm like, what memories do you want? Do you want to be an employee that's trading time for money? Yeah. Because that's what you're doing. I'll give you an example. So my son, he bought a rental property at 14 years old. Okay. And everyone's like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And he bought it with his money, and so everyone's like, man, that's awesome. That's great. Did you have him do the rehab and clean the house? And I'm like, no, why would I do that? They're like, so he can learn. I'm like, I don't do that. Why should I make him do that? That's being a hypocrite. I want him to be a business owner, not an employee.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being an employee, but that is not the goal of owning a rental property. Hey, congratulations, you own a rental property. Now go learn how to cut wood, lay tile, put in insulation. But Dad, you don't do that. I wouldn't even know how to do that. Like, again, working on strengths versus weaknesses.
Right.
People seem like when they get a rental property, they're like, all of a sudden I've got to learn how to put a toilet in and I got to get up on the roof and inspect it. I'm like, have you ever done that before? No. And I'm like, well, then why in the heck would you get up on a roof if you don't even know what you're doing? Like, this is how you become a statistic, but we think we should because of ego and pride. So that's kind of a long answer, but that's my answer.
I love it. A great answer, Steve. Great answer. Talk to us a little bit about like the qualities and what you see really successful people do who are able to implement systemization. Like what skills should people go out there and refining in order to be able to execute here really, really well?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And I've studied a lot of very successful people. I've been coached and mentored by some very successful people. And I'm a constant student. I still am mentored to this day. Anyone who says that they don't need to be coached and they don't need to be mentored is missing out on a lot of opportunity. I look at Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan. These guys are at the top of their game and they still have coaches and mentors. All professional athletes have coaches. You don't become a professional athlete and then lose the coaches. They make you better. So
and say, oh, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm done. Even Kobe Bryant. I mean, everyone, they all have coaches. I mean, that's how it works, right? A coach brings the best thing out of you. So number one, I think you always have to have somebody holding you accountable. And if you look at all successful people, they have accountability. They have somebody holding them accountable and somebody, a 3 feet distance is a world of perspective, right? In the simulators, when we fly in the simulators and we're practicing engine failures and all these things, the simulator instructor is about 3 feet behind us at the control panel. And we joke and they know, they're like, yeah, I'm the smartest guy in here because I'm 3 feet behind you. I can see all the mistakes you guys are making. You don't see it because you're in the heat of battle. He's like, I can see it coming a mile away. I'm the smartest guy in the room. So having somebody 3 feet away is a world of perspective. Having an organization help give you guidance to when you're looking to acquire a property that's giving you that 3 feet difference, that's a world of difference, right? So
yeah,
there is a recipe for success. And I'm a firm believer. If you look at all successful people, they follow a very simple recipe. It's not magic. People who are failures, they follow a recipe also.
Right.
And I think that every day that you wake up, every day that we all wake up, we have a decision to make. It's very simple. Am I going to be better than yesterday or am I going to be worse? That initially is our decision that we make every day because you're either getting better or you're getting worse. We never stay the same ever.
Yeah.
And so when you wake up in the morning, what is the decision you're going to make? Are you going to do any reading? Are you going to do any I am statements? What are you going to do to focus on solution-based questions / trying to be better? Or are you going to be in blame, excuse, or denial? So going back to your question, I think that people that if you want to learn how to become better at systemization, then talk to someone who knows what they're doing and that can help you become a systems expert. Because look, as an airline pilot, right? I've been flying for almost 30 years. I've been trained by Boeing. I fly one of the most complicated aircraft out there, a Boeing 787. I wasn't born that way. I had to be trained. And guess what? We still go back to training every 6 months and we go back through all the initial stuff. So just because you reach the pinnacle, you don't stay up there. And if you look at people that are successful, they're always trying to be better. Just because you have 3 houses or 5 houses or 500 houses, look, the crash to the bottom is much faster than the rise to the top, as we all know and seen, with banks crashing and other things. It's the people that are cognizant and follow that recipe. And again, I don't think it's a very complicated recipe. And if you look at people, they do a lot of things. And the one thing that I've learned, I'll give you a quick story. I was with one of my mentors one time. The guy has 11 businesses, right? He's on the board of 11 businesses and he was my mentor and we're eating lunch. And I was like, man, I don't know how you do it. Like you have 11 businesses. I'm like, how many days a week do you work? He's like Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes half a Friday. It was like this guy was talking Martian to me. I was just like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what, Steve, you know what the difference is? He says, I say no way more than I say yes. And I said, you know what? That's easy for you to say because you're this multimillionaire that has 11 businesses. And he said, I would have never become this way if I didn't start saying no. And he said, there's an opportunity cost that every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else.
Right.
And so he goes, every time you say yes to doing something that is not the most high income producing activity, you are saying no to something. He's like, he goes, it's your choice. So when I coach people, one of the things I do, and this will be a freebie for people watching, is I always have them do a 2-week time study. Okay. So it's a very simple time study that they have to go and they have to write down for 2 weeks, every single thing that they do, right? You want to go on a diet, you start tracking your food. You want to see where your money's going, you go on a budget. You want to see where your time's going, start tracking it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they have to give me an executive summary. Just tell me how your day went. I don't care. I don't care what you did. I just want to hear it from your words. Within 1 week, they will be like, I now know where my time is going. And most people think they're so productive. Like, oh, I work all day long. I'm like, bullshit. You don't work all day long.
Yeah.
Do the time study and we'll see. After they do the time study, they're like, man, I'm only working like 3 hours a day. I'm like, because everything else is reactionary. A 5-minute interruption, a 5-minute phone call is equal to 23 minutes of lost time. How many times as a real estate investor, entrepreneur, do we get these sideways calls that interrupt our day and they sidetrack us? If you get 10 calls a day, that's 230 minutes that you were never expecting to lose. And you just lost that chunk of time. Yeah. So now you're living what's called a reactive life. And when you're living a reactive life, you're in chaos. And when you're in chaos, you're not in control. And when you're not in control, you're not making money. So the challenge is what people don't put a factor into this chaotic life is the mental stress that it weighs on you. So once they do the first week, the second week, they have to go back and every day they have to do this. And just the type of coach I am, every day they have to send me a picture of their time study. And I tell them the day you don't send this to me is the last day you will hear from me because I can't want it more than you. Like it's very simple. Like even if you pay me all the money, you're done. Like that's just how it is. I don't have time to waste if you don't want to be better. Yeah. So when they do this, the next day is they have to put an H or an L next to that. High income activity, low income activity. And guess how many low income activities they do on a day?
Probably the majority.
So then what we do at the end of that next week, we go, okay, these are the things that make you money. These are the things that don't. We need to outsource, systemize, or automate the things that you don't make money on. Of these high income activities, which ones do you like doing? Which ones are you good at? I like this and this. Okay, then this is the focus. We need to find someone else to do these other high income activities. We don't ignore them. And so my point is when my mentor said that, he goes, Steve, he goes, understand, saying no is not saying the no the way you think it. He goes, when I say no, it just means I'm not doing it. He goes, I just make sure that other people are getting it done, but it's not through me. He goes, things still have to get done in a business, but he goes, it doesn't have to be you. That's your ego and pride thinking that you have to be the one doing it all. So that was a very valuable lesson for me that I share with you, you and the listeners.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as you're saying this, I'm just like, oh my God, I have so many L's in my day. This is insane.
Yeah, we do. We all do. And it's a matter of stepping on the scale. Whenever I'm coaching someone or someone gives me a call, they're like, man, I just feel like I'm losing it. I'm like, just do a time study. I mean, it sounds so simple or whatever, but I'm like, just do the time study. You will see very clearly and then just fix it. Look, the pendulum swings. It's okay, but you got to do something to take corrective action. Otherwise it's going to keep swinging. It's never going to go back on its own. You don't all of a sudden become more organized and more productive. It doesn't work that way, right? You're always going to go back, and you've got to start focusing on making that decision every day. What am I doing? And it could be something simple. Could be reading for 5 minutes. Could be writing your day. Could be whatever it is, but start creating habits, and those habits become patterns, and those patterns will change your life.
Mic drop, exit stage left. Steve, that was amazing, man. Man, I want to be super respectful of your time. If people want to talk with you more, learn more about you, reach out, have you as their coach, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, they can find me on all social media handles. It's Rozenberg Steve on Instagram, Steve Rozenberg on all the other stuff. They can also go to my website. My website is steverozenberg.com. It's ROZENBERG.com. And, I do a lot of coaching. I do 3-day masterminds with very high level people like Brad Lee, the Iron Cowboy, other people. I bring them in. It's all about mindset. And it's all about, the one thing I'll say real quick before we go, and I want to be respectful of your time, is don't be selfish. And to the people watching. And what I mean by that is as entrepreneurs, we watch these shows, right? We buy real estate. We do all these things, and we do it for the people that we love. But here's the thing. We never actually share the knowledge that we've learned with the people we're doing it for. To me, that's the definition of being selfish. Be selfless. Like I said, my son bought his first rental property at 14. Create generational wealth, right? Bring them into the loop. Don't be selfish, because when you're selfish, you're isolating yourself. Have an open mind and the ability to give abundance, and share the knowledge that you learn from this podcast show, reading. Bring the family that you're doing it for into the mix, and you will have a much, much more fulfilled life, and you'll be much more successful, not just financially, but personally, relationship, and all that stuff. So don't be selfish.
Yeah, I love that, Steve. And one more final question before I let you go.
Sure.
You mentioned you're running a mastermind, and I think a lot of our listeners maybe have been to how to coach, or been to seminars, or been to real estate trainings, and just for whatever reason can't implement it. They take the classroom knowledge, but they can't execute in the real world. So what have you seen people do who are really successful at that, and actually applying what they've learned and taken that excitement and went out and actually ran with it?
That's a good question. And the reason I created my mastermind is that very reason, right? Everybody goes there, rah, rah, rah. They leave, and they're like, 2 weeks later, they're like, it's in their car underneath their seat, all their notes, and the dog's chewing on it and stuff.
Yeah.
So what I do when I do my masterminds is, once they're done, they get unlimited coaching from me. They get my phone, they get my text, they get my email. If they need me, they call me. So I'm there as accountability for them every single day. It's not hey, I know you have a problem Monday morning with the tenant exploding your house, but we're supposed to talk Thursday at 3, so call me then. That doesn't work in the real world. I don't think that that's a very successful model. I give unlimited so that they have me, and they have me as accountability. I think the biggest challenge when you leave these events and coaching is the accountability part. If you have a coach and he's not accountable, find an accountability person. One of the things I do when I coach partners is I have a board of directors meeting. I create a board of directors for them, going over the P&L statements, going over balance sheets, going over the goals. This is what you need to do in any organization. All businesses do it. Most people don't. So if you can't make your coach be accountable, or you can't afford a coach, or whatever the case may be, find a friend, a family member. I'd go to the bum on the corner. I don't care, but make someone hold you accountable that you actually have to answer for what you're doing. And I think if you're accountable based on what you learn, that's why I do unlimited coaching, you're going to be much more successful with achieving the goals that you set out to achieve.
Makes total sense. Steve, this was a total blast, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. It's good having you. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, we'll definitely talk soon.
All right.
Be well. All right, everyone, that was our episode. A big thank you to Steve for coming on. Super great stuff. As he was talking, I was like, oh my God, I need to start doing a lot more of what Steve is talking about. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, feel free to leave us a rating or a review wherever it is you get your podcast. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Happy investing.